Hey YouTubers, this is the Gold Standard User 924 coming at you with Chapter 7 in my Wrestling Reimagining series for WWE in 2006. Today I'll be tackling the Raw June PPV event, which will be Vengeance. Now I referred back to the end of my previous installment where I was talking about ECW, and around this time WWE was getting set and ready to revive ECW and put it on Tuesday nights on the Sci-Fi Channel. Now, I said in the end of the video that I wasn't going to be booking ECW. I just don't think it was really necessary for me to book on a week-to-week basis. I mean, even with the addition of me, since I've been booking more on WWE on a pay-per-view by pay-per-view basis, I think adding ECW as a third brand kind of diluted the WWE roster if we're going to get the assumption that ECW and WWE are part of this in conjunction or having a working relationship in a kayfabe sense, I just really think that adding ECW kind of played a part in making the brand extension somewhat meaningless, especially in the last several years of the original brand extension where wrestlers were all of a sudden hopping on one show to the other, despite the fact that such and such wrestler belongs on this other show. And even if I even if ECW were to get revived and I honestly had no say of the matter whether or not the ECW brand would come back, I honestly would just leave it to Paul Heyman to be in charge of booking the television shows from here on out, and just kind of make it a little easier for me to focus more on WWE programming, and ECW could try to take its time to really establish itself as its own entity, as its own TV show, since they don't necessarily have any pay-per-view by pay-per-view calendar years like Raw and Smackdown has. I mean, granted, you did have the December to December pay-per-view that year, but just have ECW focus more on its television shows. Now, assuming that things go in that direction, I might as well just go along and instead of booking One Night Stand, I'm just going to skip ahead and basically book WWE, in this case with the Raw pay-per-view Vengeance. So what you need to know going into this event: RVD successfully cashes in his Money in the Bank clause to challenge Edge for the WWE title at One Night Stand. RVD would go on to beat Edge, winning the WWE Championship thanks to a bit of help from Paul Heyman, who ends up entering the ring and making the 3 count to allow RVD to win the title. Carlito wins the Intercontinental Championship for Rob Van Dam. And Johnny Nitro Melina are traded from SmackDown to Raw. Meanwhile, SmackDown, in exchange with Johnny Nitro Melina going to Raw, they get Shane Helms and Ashley Massaro. So without further ado, the Vengeance card, what I would have to open up the show will be a triple threat match for the Intercontinental Championship. Carlito to defend the belt against Shelton Benjamin and Johnny Nitro. Now this was a match that they did in actuality, and I'll definitely keep this as part of my card for Vengeance. Now the only difference is that Carlito's the champion going into it though. Now, Shelton Benjamin, if you remember from the last Raw pay-per-view, Backlash, where he came up short of the winner-take-all match. Not only did he came up short, not get the Money in the Bank briefcase, but he also lost the Intercontinental Championship as a result. Around this time, Shelton Benjamin and Charlie Haas have an ongoing saga going on in the months going into May and heading into June. There's a sort of a will they or won't they be back together. Charlie Haas is interested in pairing up with Shelton Benjamin, try to relive the good old days and considered to bring back the world's greatest tag team. Shelton Benjamin is kind of against this because it's been 2 years since Shelton Benjamin broke away from Charlie Haas, making a name for himself on Monday Night Raw. He's been a two-time Intercontinental champion. Shelton kind of blames Charlie Haas for being the reason why he came up short at Backlash, but Charlie Haas just says that, Shelton, this is just all your fault. Why are you blaming me? It's your fault that you lost the title. I tried to support you, but apparently you came off very cocky and overconfident going into that match. You threatened RVD to put his Money in the Belt up for grabs, and not belt, but Money in the Bank briefcase up for grabs, while you, Shelton, went out your way to put up your IC title as well. I mean, how stupid could you possibly be? I mean, no offense, Shelton, but we've been together, from the good times for the bad. I'm back in WWE once again. Why can't we just do it like we always do it the good old days? And this kind of leaves Charlie Haas a bit, just kind of on the wayside, which doesn't really please him at the slightest. So as far as Johnny Nitro's involvement of the match is concerned, Nitro ends up winning his first match on Raw against Carlito in a non-title match, giving him the excuse that he should be going after his IC title. So that's how the triple threat match is set. Shelton Benjamin is also still wanting to go after the Intercontinental title as well. And so they have the match here. And the finish I would have instead is Carlito going over Shelton Benjamin and Carlito going over Shelton Benjamin and Johnny Nitro, retaining the Intercontinental title. Charlie Haas is going to come down the ramp. Shelton Benjamin takes notice. He insists Charlie Haas to get backstage. Charlie Haas is just trying to come out there to help support Shelton Benjamin, but Shelton refuses. And, Shelton's distraction from Charlie Haas is going to play a role, allowing Carlito to take advantage, hit him with the backstabber, and get the cover and walk out of the match still the Intercontinental champion. Now we get to the second match, and this is going to be a tag team match. In fact, this is going to be the debut of two new tag teams. The Highlanders, consisting of Rory and Robbie McAllister. And they'll be accompanied by the WWE Hall of Famer Roddy Piper, taking on the Thrill Seekers, consisting of Johnny Jeter and Nick Nemeth. Now, for those that don't know who Nick Nemeth is, that's Dolph Ziggler. In reality, Johnny and Nick were part of the Spirit Squad, which was a comedic stable consisting of male cheerleaders that debuted earlier that year in, I want to say, January of 2006. But since I didn't get around to book the Spirit Squad, assuming that the Spirit Squad in my reality didn't exist in this universe, so I basically instead repackaged them as a tag team and sort of a vestige of the Spirit Squad, even though, like I said, the Spirit Squad didn't exist in my universe. But just the idea of having Johnny and Nick on the same team and these two up-and-coming young talents trying to make a name for themselves. And the Highlanders is also doing the same here. I had Roddy Piper coming in to manage the Highlanders just to kind of give them that, try to put them over as credible wrestlers, try to really make them out to be this big deal. And he could be responsible for cutting out these promos, trying to, put over the Highlanders to the best of his ability. And given the fact that Roddy Piper and the Highlanders are all from Scotland, so I thought it'd be nice to just kind of pair them up together and, try to make the Highlanders look like something and kind of give them a strong debut. And I would have the Highlanders go over the Thrill Seekers here. Now, the Thrill Seekers, this is not to be confused with Chris Jericho and Lance Storm, but it was basically a tag team that they had in OVW, and Johnny Jeter was also part of it. But Matt Cappotelli was part of the OVW run of the Thrill Seekers. But unfortunately, Matt Cappotelli was out of action at this time. I think he was suffering from a brain tumor, and unfortunately, he ended up getting this brain tumor back recently, which is rather unfortunate. Um, but whatever the case may be, I just hope things get better for him. I like the idea of this tag team. I watched a couple tryout matches that they had on Velocity, and they looked pretty promising. And it's just kind of very disappointing that they never to bring the Thrill Seekers as part of like the main roster, as opposed to just kind of like a tryout match or an enhancement match just to put over the already established wrestlers that were on the roster. But I definitely like the idea and concept, and I tweaked it a little bit around because with based on Matt Cappotelli's situation at the time. But I would have is Nick Nemeth to take Matt's spot in the Thrill Seekers. And this hopefully should be a pretty fun match, hopefully, and gets at least enough time. The Highlanders going to go over in their debut. The third match I will have here is Nick Dinsmore taking on Hacksaw Jim Duggan. You might be wondering exactly how the hell did Eugene undergo a complete 180 transformation. Now, this stems from the events that have been transpiring throughout the past several months. Since Backlash, Matt Striker takes Eugene under his wing as his case manager for special needs. Matt Striker's influence on Eugene has greatly affected his judgment. Since becoming his case manager, he has provided him with moral support to give Eugene a sense of hope and direction. Over time, Eugene experienced an attitude adjustment during a shoot promo on One Night Stand. He goes on a tirade regarding the ECW crowd booing him. And Eugene has been trying to do the best he can to, try to be, just try to calm down the crowd and try to get them on his side. But when that backfires, Eugene all of a sudden breaks the fourth wall, admitting that that he said that he's just had enough. He starts talking very normally. He's not mentally challenged. He'll even admit that it's all been a ruse, just a way to garner fans' sympathy. Matt Striker has told him that it's okay to be himself and that he shouldn't be afraid to open up his true feelings. Eugene scolding the audience, insisting that the wrestler you knew him is just a phony that won't get anywhere in life. As of this moment, don't refer to me as Eugene, but call me by my birth name, Nick Dinsmore. Now, Hacksaw Jim Duggan has been involved in this because he's trying to convince Eugene that what Matt Striker has been telling Eugene, that it's all just a bunch of propaganda. You should make your own decisions. Nick Dinsmore starts to take everything into perspective and goes on to attack Hacksaw Jim Duggan, setting up this match for Vengeance. And not a very long match. Nick Dinsmore just demolishes Hacksaw Duggan despite his efforts. So that's my third match. Next up, we have for the Women's Championship, we have Mickie James defending her belt against Victoria. This has been going on for the past several months. Mickie James and Victoria have been screwing each other left and right. Victoria won a gauntlet match at New Year's Revolution, but it came at the expense of cheating her way out of the match to earn her women's title opportunity. Royal Rumble comes around. Mickie James was the referee. She ends up retaliating and costing Victoria her opportunity. Also around this time, with Candice Michelle being Mickie James's valet, Victoria decides to opt out of the dissension going on between Tori and Candice to fight over who is deserving of the front page of the Playboy magazine, and Victoria just says that she doesn't want any part of it. Now, this all kind of comes together here. Beth Phoenix, who you might refer back to my Backlash card, where she ends up helping Mickie James retain the title. Now, I did realize that at the time of Vengeance that Beth Phoenix suffered a severe nose injury, and unfortunately, this sidelined Beth out of WWE television for a while. Mickie James is going to go over Victoria, but Victoria is going to hopefully look good in this match and make it seem like she might win it, but Candice Michelle tried to distract the referee, but also doing what she can to prevent Victoria from winning the match. And Mickie James is going to go over Victoria and retaining her women's title. Now we get to the fifth match, which would be Umaga taking on Kane. I decided not to do the Kane versus Kane match, just basically how awful that it was, but instead put Kane in a better role here and putting up against another powerhouse monster like Umaga. And Umaga has just been destroying all challengers that have been in his path. Armando Estrada, who is Umaga's manager at this time, has been looking for a bigger challenge, and even emphasizing that pun, Kane ends up volunteering to take that challenge. Umaga's going to go over Kane here, even though this would be a hard-fought bout between these two Goliaths. But Umaga's going to find a way to dismantle Kane. Armando Estrada, who was the manager, is going to do what he can, even during situations where Kane has the upper advantage, because the announcers trying to put it over is that, Umaga has been undefeated, that this could be the end of his streak. But, Armando Estrada is just being the heel that he is, doing all he can to make sure that Kane doesn't decimate Umaga. And the Samoan Savage is going to take the advantage and completely destroy Kane and win the match. And basically we could do the ending of the match where Umaga attacks Kane and even doing like a body splash off the announce table, I guess you could say. Maybe announce table or just a regular table. Try to do all he can to really put over Umaga as this unstoppable force to be reckoned with. And this is going to sideline Kane for however long that he's going to be out. Just a worked injury angle just to really try to put over Umaga. Then we get the tag team title bout. DX defending the belts against Lance Cade and Trevor Murdoch. Now, DX have been holding that World Tag Team title belt since Backlash, where they won it from The Big Show and Kane. Now, there's going to be... I've been kind of fluctuating back and forth whether this should be a tag team tournament, a tag team turmoil, or a battle royal to determine who would be the number one contenders for the World Tag Team titles. But whatever the case may be, I had Lance Cade and Trevor Murdoch winning the number one contendership to challenge Triple H and Shawn Michaels for the belts. Cade and Murdoch were the tag team champions at the time, and they dropped the belts, then they kind of floundered for a bit. And I really want to give them this opportunity to really kind of rejuvenate Cade and Murdoch, try to really put them over as a credible tag team once again. And maybe you could even make a little bit of claims about how Triple H and Shawn Michaels are just a bunch of 40-year-old frat boys trying to relive their young adulthood, and that just kind of makes them sick to their stomach. And I guess you could really try to put it over that way as far as a build-up is concerned, but there wouldn't be as much build-up like some of the main event matches that will go on later on. But the World Tag Team title belts will be up for grabs. And DX is going to go over Cade and Murdoch. I mean, it might sound a bit of a filler feud, but I'd really try to strengthen up the tag team division and, try to give something for Sean and Hunter to do. Next up we have is the first out of the two doubleheader matches presented on the card. John Cena taking on Ric Flair. Now, this stems from the main event from Backlash, which was a triple threat for the WWE title in which Edge at the time was the champion. Towards the end of the match, John Cena, who has the steel chain wrapped around his fist, he attempts to use that steel chain to attack Edge, but unfortunately that backfires. Edge moves out of the way. Cena clubs it on Ric Flair instead. Edge takes disadvantage, spears Cena in order to retain the WWE title. Afterwards, there's some bickering going on between John Cena and Ric Flair, blaming each other for the loss. Cena tries to apologize to Ric Flair into saying that he was using that steel chain to attack Edge, but Ric Flair begs to differ. He thinks that Cena did this on purpose, even though John Cena kind of comes off innocent as what it seems during that segment on Raw. Now, around this time, they are sanctioning sort of a tag team number one contenders match where the winner would go on to challenge DX for the World Tag Team titles at Vengeance. Cena and Flair are forced to pair up together despite the fact that these two just can't seem to coexist. They take on Lance Cade and Trevor Murdoch. The latter of the tag team, Cade and Murdoch, would go over Cena and Flair. There's going to be some kind of miscommunication that will play a huge part in Cena and Flair losing their shot at the tag team titles. Afterwards, John Cena and Ric Flair, John Cena tries to apologize for Flair, and out of nowhere, Cena just assaults Flair from behind and just continues to pound away on the Nature Boy, cementing him as a heel. You might argue that this could be a pretty risky move for me to, pull the trigger on John Cena and make him come off as a villain. And, the more you think about it, especially with John Cena, where he was at this point in his career, he was obviously on top, but the thing is that, the crowd had more or less started to turn on him. And on one side, there's some fans that support Cena, and there's a one half of wrestling fans that are against Cena. You have to ask yourself, it's like, what do I do in this scenario? Now, I decided to pull the trigger on John Cena with the direction that I've been going with his character, starting to show a lot more edge into his character. Ever since he came back from New Year's Revolution, coming back after spending a month hiatus, comes back in February, but even though he was a babyface at the time, he's starting to show a lot more aggression. A lot of the times he would utilize the STF submission hold to finish off his opponents. And even after the match, he would start to utilize the STF, even though he won the match. But he's just coming off as this ravaged animal. And the announcers try to put it over as best as they can. And as the months go on, it starts to become a lot more apparent that Cena is not just the goody two-shoes that you may think he tends to be. And after months and months of really trying to cement Cena, started to really show a gradual change. Cena taking out his frustrations on one of the most respected athletes that the business has ever witnessed. He lashes out on Ric Flair. He assaults him. He goes on to explain why he did what he did. It's like, you fans have just been annoying the crap out of me. I don't understand why you guys have been booing me. Ever since I came to Raw just over a year ago, I was the WWE champion. I had the whole world in my hands. And the fact that he's worked so hard to get to the top, to grab that brass rum, and he feels like he just doesn't get the respect or the credit that he deserves. And Ric Flair is in this scenario because, John Cena, even during my prime, I was just like you at your age. I was very cocky. I was arrogant. I felt at a moment in time that I had the whole world in my hands. But there came a time where I started to look myself in the mirror. And what I'm going to do at Vengeance, this is not going to be for any title belts. This is just a battle of respect. I want to teach you, even throughout my years as a performer, that I am without a doubt the best that this business has ever seen. And I'm going to teach you that come Vengeance. Give this match, but at least enough time for them to really make this more of a slugfest. At some point, there's going to be a ref bump along the way. John Cena is going to try and attempt to utilize the steel chain. Ric Flair retaliates. He grabs the steel chain that Cena drops. He's going to club the steel chain onto his opponent. Flair goes on to get the cover. Referee makes a slow count, but Cena just kicks out at near fall. And Ric Flair is kind of like in shock and awe. Now, John Cena is going to find a way to do the typical Cena comeback, the shoulder tackle, the Blue Thunder bomb, the spin out power bomb, however you want to refer to it as, 5-knuckle shuffle. And then he's going to go for the FU. He's going to pick up Ric Flair once again. And just before he could deliver that FU, Ric Flair out of nowhere just counters it into a small package roll-up. 1, 2, 3. Ric Flair wins in his hometown of Charlotte. This infuriates John Cena, just having been caught off guard. His cockiness has gotten the better of him. That played a part in him, losing the match and letting Ric Flair just find a way to sneak in a victory. So Cena attacks Ric Flair. He, just pounds away on Flair, uses the steel chain that he attempted to use the first time around, but this time it succeeds. John Cena just clubs Ric Flair with that chain, while the referees come out there to restrain John Cena. We could even have him use the STF submission hold, maybe utilize the steel chain and try to use it to strangle Ric Flair. And eventually he lets go. And announcers try to put over just how much damage that Ric Flair had sustained during the post-match aftermath. And just also putting over how despicable John Cena did, even after coming out of the match short, and that he just didn't really take losing very kindly. Now we get to the main event. Rob Van Dam going in as the champion, defending the belt against the Rated R Superstar Edge. Now, this is a match that they did also at the actual Vengeance card, but unlike in reality, this match would be the main event, and there would definitely be a lot more at stake. This stems from the match that they had at One Night Stand. RVD agrees to cash in his Money in the Bank contract to challenge Edge for the WWE title. RVD would go on to win the championship, thanks to a bit of assistance from Paul Heyman, who serves as the referee making the count, which sparked a lot of controversy towards the end of the show. Now, the Raw after One Night Stand, Edge is very furious after what just happened. He says that what happened at the end was just all a ruse, and that there was a bit of conspiracy going on between RVD and Paul Heyman. And Edge just goes on to complain about how he lost the WWE title belt unfairly and insists that the match never took place, which therefore convincing the booking committee or what have you to reverse the decision and award the WWE title back to Edge. Now, RVD comes out to claim that even when he was the Money in the Bank winner, that when it comes to the contract, he says that he is able to use that Money in the Bank to cash in his opportunity at any place at any given time. And since One Night Stand, this was an ECW show, which primarily all the matches consist of no disqualifications and no countouts, there's really no way of saying that RVD didn't deserve to hold the belt because this was basically anything goes. You talk about the match being unfair, and this is what RVD is going to say. I don't remember you winning the WWE Championship in a sanctioned match. At least not how I did it. During his contract signing with Edge, when he won the WWE Championship, the contract states that he could show up on WWE programming as long as he's able to defend the title consistently. Since Vince had agreed with Paul to reinstate ECW as part of their brand extension, Edge had no choice but to abide by those terms, thanks to the signature that he signed during that contract signing. But there is a catch. Because of the controversial ending, Vince grants Edge a WWE title rematch against RVD in 2 weeks' time at Vengeance. Now, there's also a stipulation in addition to that. Any superstar of ECW, they agreed to a stipulation in which any superstar of ECW interferes, RVD would not only be disqualified, but he would be stripped of the WWE Championship. Paul agrees, only if it means banning the WWE employees also, in that case, including Edge's girlfriend Lita. Vince puts his end of the bargain and agrees that they both have the match, RVD Edge one-on-one, the main event at Vengeance, barring any competitor from ECW and WWE from interfering in the match in some way, shape, or form. And they have the match basically how it all turned out. It was actually a really cool match. It was actually understandable why they didn't have a main event because they were hyping up for the return of D-Generation X. But this is an entirely different reality that I've structured. So it definitely makes RVD and Edge kind of more of a anticipated main event as opposed to just being the second to last or the third to last match on the card. But fact of the matter is, RVD is going to go over Edge, just like how it happened, and he's going to retain the WWE Championship. So let me know what you think about the card down in the comment section below. Tell me what your thoughts on the card overall. What are some of the favorite matches you would have liked to see? Stay tuned as I will book Chapter 8, which will be the Smackdown July pay-per-view, the Great American Bash. So stick around if you're still interested. Thank you all guys for watching. And until then, this is the Gold Standard 0924 signing out.